Today, I want to talk a little bit about some different deadlift variations that I use to build strength and to keep things fresh. I think in the end, if you're trying to get stronger, you can't do the same thing all the time. Your body adapts quickly and it won't be very effective at getting stronger. And mentally, it's you got to keep things fresh too, so you stay motivated and want to keep working on things. I'm 56 years old and I've been doing this since I was a teenager, so you have to definitely work to keep things fresh as much as you can and stay motivated. It can get monotonous if you don't. And to be honest with you, it works as well. So I'm going to cover a few different things as some of the three different variations I do of deadlifts that I rotate between each week. Show you kind of the starting positions. I think we'll watch each one of them once, and then I'll go back and kind of break down what I'm doing and why, and how this might help for you. So let me start the video here, and you can kind of watch. I'm deadlifting from the floor in the first one, and I'll show just one of my recent workouts with this. I think this is 565 pounds, and I'll throw out there too while you're watching this. I had a hip replacement 10 years ago, and they told me not to lift heavy anymore. And I avoided heavy squats and deadlifts for many, many years. Probably about a year ago, I started doing some deadlifts again when I felt like I was strong enough. I still did leg workouts, I still did back workouts, all those things, but um, I wanted to kind of play around with it and see if I had built enough strength around the joint that I could still do some stuff. This is a trap bar with wagon wheels, so it's up off the ground a little bit, and I worked up to 800 this last year. So one of the things that I think um, is worth looking at here. So I've kind of explained why I'm doing what I'm doing. Many years ago, I was pretty good at the deadlift. In I think 2010, I did my first 800-pound raw deadlifting competition. And the next year, I did an 830, which ended up being the top raw deadlift for a super heavyweight in the country. And it was number two overall. Brad Gillingham had the number one with the 881 with the single ply suit. And anybody who followed powerlifting back in those days certainly knew Brad, multi-time world powerlifting champion, always a great deadlifter, great guy. I actually talked to him at the Mr. Olympia that year when I did the pro deadlift competition, and it was good kind of talking about the differences in our deadlift technique and stuff. So um, used to do really. I actually stopped my last competition in the deadlift was the Mr. Olympia in 2011, and I stopped because I found out I was having back problems, and it turned out I was missing half my hip on the left side. The hip ball was eaten away, and so I had to have a hip replacement. I waited till 2016 to do it, and they were like, whatever you do, don't deadlift heavy and squat heavy anymore, don't run, don't all that kind of stuff, or it'll wear out and you have to do it again. So I avoided those things for many years, and I found that if I work things into things gradually and pay attention to whether or not things are hurting around it or not, I can still deadlift a decent amount of weight. I can still lift weights relatively heavy. I just need to be careful. So I know that's a big preamble, but that's why I'm doing some of the things I'm doing. And you'll look at my body's broken and beat up and old, so my form is never great. But I think that's part of what I want to talk about too, is that there are ways to work around whether it's injuries or just your natural structure. There is not a cookie cutter approach where everybody's body can get into the same positions and do the same things. I don't sumo deadlift, for example, not because I think it's cheating or it's a bad idea, but because it doesn't work for me. My hips have always been tight. They're not great. I can't get into those positions and I'm not strong in those positions. If I was, I would have been a sumo deadlifter. I just wanted to lift as much weight as I could. So I do what I do because it works for my body, but maybe some of these tips can help you. So we'll start off with, even just looking at it right now, you can see the deadlift from the floor. I have more of a forward lean. I'm squatting a little bit lower as well. And the reason for that is in order for me, my forward lean is probably pretty similar between the wagon wheel with the straight bar and the deadlift from the floor. And the difference is in how low my hips go and how much my legs are bent. My legs are bent more from the floor because the only way I can get down and grab the bar is by dropping my hips lower and leaning forward to get there and to be able to grab the bar. I'm 6'3", a little over 300 pounds now, which is significantly down from my competing days when I was about 360. But and so for me, with my structure, I have probably average length arms for my height, not super long, but you can see my lower legs are kind of long. So my knees are up over the bar, and I'm having trouble um, gripping it and being in the right position. So in order to get into that position and even grab the bar, my shins should be perpendicular with the floor. They're leaning forward because I can't do any better. I can't get in another position, so I have to deal with that. Now, if you look at the bottom one with the trap bar and wagon wheels, you can see that I'm much more upright in my starting position. I'm able to have the weight centered instead of leaning forward because it's no straight bar getting hit in my shins. I can be in a much better lifting position. My hips are not nearly as low, and I'm more upright, and that of course allows me to lift a lot more weight, and that's how that works. So let's go forward to watching the actual lift when we get to the deadlift from the floor. If you see that as I start here, my hips are up high. I'm getting a breath, basically. I've gotten a grip on the bar. I'm trying to get a good breath and get into position. And then as soon as I drop them, I kind of get to where my hips are kind of low so that I can get myself in a right position where my ankles, knees, shoulders are kind of aligned so that the bar is pulling directly up. Problem is my shins or my knees are over the top of the bar, and I can't pull the bar up with my shins in the way. So as soon as I start lifting, ideally you would say keep your body in that same position and just pull straight up. But if I do, the bar hits my shins. So I have to straighten my legs first before I can straighten my body. And that leads to a very big forward lean. I've thought about it over the years and thought, well, my back's not strong enough or I'm not doing whatever. And the more I've watched it, I realize there's really no other way. Until my shins and knees get out of the way, I can't straighten my upper body. I just get stuck. So my shins are now perpendicular to the ground, and I can pull this way until it passes my knees, and then from there on it's real easy. So I'll move on to the next one now that I've kind of explained why I do that. Now the wagon wheels, it's the same situation, but the wagon wheels make it a little higher off the ground. So at this bottom position, my knees are still over the bar a little bit, but not quite as much, not quite as pronounced. But this is the same situation. The bar causes me, with the length of my lower legs, if I have to bend over that far to get to the bar, my knees are going to go over the bar. If I make my shins perpendicular, I'll fall backwards. And I've heard people say, no, you won't. I've tried it. I do fall backwards. I have too much weight leaning back to be able to hold it. I would just fall backwards with the bar digging into my shins. So same thing, I'll start pulling. So I have to lean forward a little farther, but it's not as long of a trip before it gets to my knees. And at that point, I can straighten up real quickly again and pop it into position. Now I go ahead on this final one. Now, like I said before, with the trap bar and the wagon wheels, I'm in a pretty good position. I have the weight, just below. If you were to draw the line from where my hands are to where my shoulders are, they're pretty much straightened down, up and down. There's no bar impeding by hitting my legs or being in any weird position. And I'm high enough that I'm pretty upright. I'm in a good, strong power position where I can just simply block it, straighten my knees, straighten my hips, my back, all at the same time. It looks very smooth. And even though there's significantly more weight, 800 pounds here, it still goes pretty easy. And there it is. Lock it out, hold it, and set it down. So I think what I'll finish that by, or finish here saying, is that each one of those positions works my back, works my body in a little bit different way. It allows me to strengthen all the muscles throughout the range of motion. Certainly, the lower it is to the ground, the more work my back gets, my lower back and my hips. But by doing the trap bar deadlift with the wagon wheels, I can lift a lot more weight. But at the top, because I'm handling a lot more weight, there's a lot more grip work. There's a lot more shoulders, traps, core, everything supporting that weight. And so it has its own place. And by doing all three of them and rotating through, I continually stress my body in different ways and cause it to grow and adapt without becoming complacent. And it makes things interesting. You have different records. I know that whatever I did in my floor deadlifts the last time, I want to beat that the next time. Same thing for wagon wheel with a straight bar, and then the trap bar with the wagon wheels. I have records in each of those areas, and I can keep it interesting this way. So hopefully that helped. And if you have any questions from that, just leave them in the comments, or anything else you'd like to learn about or lifts you like to see, I'll see what I can do for you. So I appreciate you guys paying attention to this, and until next time.